chat. So yeah, I think it does have the right title because I just got an email telling me that it does. So good. We should be all set to go in a minute or two. Just waiting on Escape to open up, and then we'll be able to jump right in. But this evening, as you can tell from the title, we'll be doing a fantasy Savannah scene, and then I'm going to be doing some Escape, well, not Escape, CSS experiments. I don't know why I said Escape. We're going to be doing some experiments with actually setting a color by using calc on the height of the page. So that should be pretty interesting. Alright, so just give me a minute and we will jump right in. As is often the case, Inkscape is taking its cool time to start. I don't know why, but I'll figure that out in a minute. In the meantime though, remember the music is always taken from creators lib free on YouTube. Oh, hi Ellie. I didn't see you in the chat, sorry. If you're wondering who I'm speaking to and you're on oh wait, did I just send that to both channels? I'm not sure if I just sent that to both channels, but yeah. If you're wondering who I'm speaking to at any point in time, I may be talking to somebody on Twitch or YouTube because I can see both. So if you're on either of the two and you're not seeing the other chat, that explains it all. If you're on Twitter, tough luck because I can't see you. So I'm just being bad to my Twitter friends, but I don't think that many people usually talk on Twitter anyway, so I guess that shouldn't be too much of a big deal. I hope not. Anyway, oh, Escape did open apparently, but it opened on the wrong screen and didn't tell me anything, so let me pull it up and we will get started. Here we are, finally got Escape to open. So as I said, I'm going to be doing a fantasy Savannah and I'm going to actually be going back to my childhood. I was supposed to have some guests this evening. My nieces and nephews said they wanted to watch, but for some reason they haven't showed up, so we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll show up at some point. By the way, if my voice goes silent at any point, my headset keeps dropping off because it doesn't like to stay on my head, so that would explain why. Alright, so as I always do, I'm going to start with the calligraphy tool and I'm going to sketch what I plan to draw this evening. Oops. I'm actually using the tablet, so if anything moves funny, that's what it is. Keeps dragging this for some reason. Alright, so what I have in mind is to do a kind of a river somewhere around here. That is huge. Let me turn off stroke, because that shouldn't be so big. Right there. And I'm gonna have another side to it somewhere here. So you're gonna have two shores. Now, as I mentioned, this is going to hark back to my childhood because most of the creatures I will draw on this are not real whatsoever, but they come from a story I would have created when I was a child that grew with me. I won't give you the name of it because it is actually a novel that I started to write and did not release. I used to release the name years ago, but I have since matured and learned, and I don't give out certain information publicly anymore. But yeah, it is a novel, and someday I may complete it. I got pretty far, but never actually finished it. It was a pretty interesting story too. But just to whet your appetite, it's kind of like Jurassic Park on steroids, with a whole lot more than dinosaurs. So it was lots of fun for me. I think this sketch is actually going to become part of the final drawing because this looks better than I expected as a shoreline, so I'm probably going to keep this. Every time I hear this song, I remember my YouTube channel because I chose this as my intro music, so every time it starts, it makes me feel like I'm actually about to start a YouTube video. So I have to go into YouTube whenever I hear it, like, hey y'all, today we're going to be doing blah 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 blah. I try to be excited, but I don't have that kind of excited Barney voice unless I'm acting, so I can't pull that one off. I'm not that kind of YouTube influencer, unfortunately. But as everyone knows, I am Batman. That was completely random, I know, but I had to throw it in. Alright, I think I'm going to stop working on that shoreline for now. Some of this will be erased eventually because I plan to draw some creatures on the shoreline, probably drinking or going in or out of the water at some point. Alright, let me see. Up in here I want to do some mountains. Down here I want to have maybe like a crowd of animals. So what I'm going to do is lock this layer. And on layer 3 I'm going to draw the mountains I want to have. I'm thinking I'm going to do this one similar to how I'm doing Uncharted Oceans, where I have a really big scene with lots of stuff going on, so you can zoom in and see even more detail, or you can zoom out and look at the bigger picture and still have a full scene in your head. Keep in mind these are rough, so this is not the final design here. Although I have to say, I'm getting so good now that even rough designs are not that bad. Alright, so that makes the mountains right there. Somewhere over here will be the sun. Probably not this big, obviously. And I may put some clothes. You know what I've never actually done in an illustration? Put clothes above the mountains. I should probably do that in this one. At some point I'll erase parts of the mountains and put some clothes there. That'll be fun. Speaking of which, when we went to Dominica, we could have had the experience of actually driving through the clothes, but fortunately for my very own self at the time that didn't happen. A friend of mine actually did, and he said when you go through clothes you can't really see much of anything, but you get very wet. Which at the time I did not understand because I had no concept of what clothes really were. So it was really confusing for me to hear that you get wet when you go through a cloud. It was like, how does a cloud make you wet? Then I found out clothes are just big, well, I don't want to say balls, but they're gigantic, whatever word you use there for water vapor, just a whole big set of water flowing through the air. Still though, I have to say, oops, I'm here drawing and I just locked it there. I didn't even think what I was doing. So let me erase those. Right there. Good. Yeah. Yeah, so the thing is, actually experiencing, even though I wasn't driving through the clothes, experiencing what it looks like to be above the clothes and have the possibility of driving through them was something else. But I would do it again. No, I'm older, it's not scary anymore. Alright, so I'm gonna lock this one. By the way, I am open to your suggestions and ideas if you want. Whenever I'm doing scenes like this, I like to hear from my audience what you want to have in it, even though it's my idea and concept. If you want to see some crazy looking animals or something like that, I can do that. Or if you just want me to slow down, speed up, whatever it is, I'm open. Alright, I'm gonna zoom right in and make this a lot smaller because I'm gonna try to do some creatures with some fine detail. Alright, so I'll probably start with some kind of dinosaur-like animal because that's like one of my favorite things to do. Draw dinosaurs. So I'll start with something along those lines. Okay, this is way too thin. Still seems to be a little bit too thin as far as I can tell. Maybe I need to zoom in some more. Probably what it is. Actually, come to think of it, my mistake may actually be zooming in because Inkscape is a funny tool in that if you zoom in, it actually draws lighter. I forgot it's the other way around from what I was thinking. If I zoom out, these will be much bigger, which I don't really want at this point in time. Have this guy sleeping on the shoreline. Before I go too far, I'm gonna have to stop and save this because I just remembered, seeing as I'm using a development build, it's quite possible for this to crash at random, and I really don't want to have to recover anything to do. Now, for those who don't know, creatures like dinosaurs, birds, and a number of others actually walk on their tiptoes continually. Whenever I'm drawing them, that comes to mind, and it's kind of freaky when you think about it. We're actually kind of, well, not quite the exception, but we're kind of weird compared to the animals because we walk plantigrade, which means that our toes make up part of our foot surface on the ground. Oh, hi Martin. How's it going? Speaking of dinosaur toes, I was watching a documentary recently that was quite fascinating, dealing with, I wouldn't say possible because I believe it's a real creature. I mean, the indigenous people say it's real, but living dinosaur in the Congo, and there are actually some casts of its footprints, and it was really interesting to see that as big as they are, like probably 30 feet long, that their footprints just have toe marks and very small pads underneath their feet because they tiptoe just like other dinosaurs. You wouldn't think so, but quite a feat of engineering that they're actually tiptoeing and the rest of the weight is carried on pads beneath their toes. Whereas with us, we just plant our whole toe on the ground and call it a day. By the way, another creature that walks like that, elephants. I don't know why I'm stuck on this right now, but it's just in my head for some reason. But yeah, elephants are pretty similar, walking on their tiptoes and a pad underneath their toes. Whereas we, as I said, are planting the whole thing down. That is, I don't know why that is stuck in my head and why that's so important to me right now, but it just is. Alright, I'm gonna try to squeeze some, not really hands because they're not hands, they're feet, but I'm gonna try to squeeze the forelimbs in here somewhere. Cool thing with Inkscape though is if these proportions come out wrong, I can just drag stuff around because I'm not actually painting. Or, well, I mean I am drawing, but I'm not drawing in the conventional sense because I'm using vectors, and that is so cool. So I can just grab this stuff and move it around if it doesn't come out right. It's true, we humans are some very weirdly designed creatures when you think about it. Like, take for instance, our field of vision is so small compared to so many animals, and we technically are prey for a lot of things. It's just that we've kind of conquered the world and live in buildings, but when you think about it, you know, we are prey, and our eyes stick straight forward like predators. I guess we should just be thankful that most of the animals that can eat us are very rare and not around our dwelling places that often. We're blessed and we don't even realize it. Alright, this eye is a little too thick. I want it to actually look like if it is closed. I'm gonna try to use a trick and do the reptilian eye with scales around the edges. Speaking of reptiles and sleeping, the other day I was looking outside and saw this lizard. I believe it's a giant amoeba, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, it was running around through like the undergrowth or leaves or whatever it was, and all of a sudden it just stopped in mid-run and stayed right where it was, like one foot in the air, head pointed up in the air, and practically asleep. I just said to myself, this is so hilarious because cold-blooded animals sometimes just like run out of energy, and it made me think, like, imagine if we just ran out of energy at random. Like, you're running along or you're doing your work or whatever, and then you're just suddenly out of energy. Like your battery runs out. I don't know what relevance that has to anything, but it just crossed my mind again. It was so funny to me. Some more detail to look correct from the distance. So what I'm going to do is actually remove these areas here. And draw the ridge of the eye all over again. This erase tool is just absolutely my favorite. Other than calligraphy, of course, this is one of my favorite things. And I only recently started using it, but it is so cool. It's kind of like drawing calligraphy by reverse, I guess. Alright, let's do this again. I wonder if reptiles dream. I don't know why that just crossed my mind, but I wonder about that. This song is new, or at least it seems new. I haven't heard this one before. I'm gonna draw a nice reptilian ear right here. I wonder if dinosaurs had ears like regular reptiles do, or if they look different. Because without soft tissue, it's kind of hard to tell what certain features were like. Like, I'm about to get really controversial here, but take for instance the ecostones, which some people don't believe to be true. Personally, I do believe that some of them are legit, but anyway, the ecostones actually have some sauropods breastfeeding, and as much as that sounds ridiculous, and also very unlikely, let's just suppose, you know, that they are real. What if that is true? We have no way of knowing, because all we have is bones. So we could be arguing as human beings and thinking, oh yeah, for sure, that stuff is stupid. And what if we're wrong? Because we never saw one. All we have is bones. Things like that help you to remain humble in life because there's so much we don't know. Like, take for instance, we all believe, well, I mean, we know the sun is a star, but we all believe that the core of the sun is a great big hot ball of hydrogen and helium. What if it isn't? What if there's something else that we can't measure? Stuff like that always crosses my mind and makes me think there's so much we don't actually know, but we tell ourselves we do know because we can make some really good assumptions and deductions and stuff like that. But what if we're wrong? Then again, I shouldn't say hydrogen and helium. I forget. In a main sequence star of that sort, it would be heavier elements. But my point still remains. There's a lot we don't know. Well, that's interesting. I wonder what they do dream about, seeing as it's quite likely they do. And I wonder if the dreams of pet reptiles are different from wild reptiles. Like, what if a bearded dragon dreams about the owner, or a pet snake dreams about getting a mouse? I wonder about stuff like that. Well, this is looking good. That looks really good. Wow. I have to say I'm actually getting better at this. I really love drawing dinosaurs. It has always been one of my favorite things from since I was a child. Even though the depictions I saw were quite inaccurate, like Spinosaurus with a T-Rex head. But yeah, I really love drawing them all my life. Well, just a heads up for anyone who got here a little later than the beginning, I'm going to be doing CSS at some point as well. Doing some experiments with trying to see, well, not trying to see because it will work, it's just I'll probably have to figure out a way to set a limit, but changing the color of the background, or basically any element really, because I'm going to use a variable or use variables to do it, but I'm going to be changing the color on the changing height and width and stuff like that. So we're going to use the calc function, and well, I don't think I'm going to use min max because that can be a little confusing even to me, so I'm going to leave that one alone. But I'm going to use the calc function and try to work out something pretty cool in CSS later. But don't worry, there will be intermission at some point. Yes, Cascade. I love. No, I say Cascade, and my brain did what my brain always does, which is start to think about Cascade bleach. Makes your clothes whiter than white. But yeah, I don't think that's how the ad actually goes. But yeah, at some point I will switch over to CSS, but we'll have intermission, and I'll show you some really cool stuff that's coming soon. Some is coming this month actually, so stay tuned for that. Now what I think I'm going to do, I'm actually going to label the creatures that I draw in this scene. Yeah, so I'm going to label this one shortly. Let me just draw his hand first. Although I shouldn't say a hand because they technically don't have hands. Speaking of which, it's kind of funny to me, being a child of the 90s and very, very late 80s, when I see newer dinosaur textbooks drawing dromaeosaurs with basically wings, because as cool as it looks, and I've always liked to see dinosaurs drawn with feathers and stuff, and I won't get into that debate because that debate annoys me quite a bit. But anyway, there is one thing that I find really funny these days in depictions, which is that people basically break their wrists in order to make them look more like birds, because their wrists didn't bend back all that far. And it would be kind of pointless to have a giant hand with claws that can't be used for anything but folding back against your body. That would be so useless and pointless. They had hands, or at least equivalents of hands, and they couldn't be pronated. That was something I remember growing up on. It was always said dromaeosaurs could not pronate their hands. In other words, they couldn't turn them like we can all the way, and they could grasp their prey from the front, but probably not much else. And all of a sudden, we break their wrists and point them backwards. Because they're birds! No, they're not. But, yeah. This is one of the little minor things in science that frustrates me, which is that consensus among a group of peers eventually becomes taken as fact, no matter what the evidence says. But the evidence doesn't actually point in that direction. We're just supposed to believe it because, hey, it's cool. And hey, I'm sorry, I think it's cool too. Looks cool and all that stuff, but it's kind of impractical and doesn't make any sense. I just outed myself. Oh no. I can't say that stuff. Well, then again, I do say that stuff on Twitter because I don't really care. But I'm not supposed to say stuff like that on Twitter because that makes people say, oh, you're stupid. I'm not stupid. I'm actually just looking at the evidence. Right, I need to fix his note here because that looks really janky. So I'm going to take this out. And try it again. You know, no, I'm on this subject of dinosaurs with feathers. Another funny one to me is when they draw T-Rex with feathers, because it's like, we never found any feathers on them. Why are you drawing them? Well, everyone says that coleosaurs had feathers, so I drew them with it. No, they didn't. We have no evidence. Makes no sense. It's also very impractical too when you think about it, because a creature that big doesn't actually need an integument of feathers to keep it warm. It would actually have the opposite effect of causing it to overheat. So it would be pretty pointless. Kind of like how elephants don't have a whole lot of hair. I mean, mammoths did, but remember, mammoths were living in the cold. So if you're that big and you are covered in hair or fur or feathers or anything like that, you're gonna boil. Not smart. But I mean, hey, it looks cool, so have fun. Oh, if you missed that one, I was saying basically, coleosaurs, like, well, that could go from T-Rex down to, like, creatures like ornitholestes and stuff are drawn with feathers when we haven't actually found them on them. And in some cases it doesn't make any sense because they're too big. I don't know why I'm ranting about dinosaurs and feathers today, but here we are. Okay, this guy looks really good, I have to say. Oh, sweet. For anyone who's in the chat and doesn't know, Martin is an Inkscape developer, so make sure to pass on your thanks and donations, because he makes, not only him, but he's one of the people who makes this that I'm doing right here possible. And Inkscape has really matured since I first started using it, although when I first started using it, Inkscape was already mature. It's gotten even better. And I have to say, I'm slightly surprised that Inkscape has not become industry standard at this point, because unless you're working with print media and you have to use a CMYK workflow, you probably could just use SVG for digital stuff, and that is an industry standard. So I'm kind of surprised that it isn't already accepted as an industry standard. But fortunately, I've been seeing a lot of companies catching on recently, which is good. Like, it's actually being mentioned. Oh, wait a minute. Now I saw the full statement. OBS Studio was hiding part of it. Yeah, Inkscape is... That is really funny. Inkscape is mature enough to need a walking stick. It's true. Inkscape is so old, Inkscape can buy alcohol without anybody asking. But they probably would ask, like, where's your son to take you home? I'm being so bad right now. Sir, I can't let you have that. No, sir, you're gonna... No! Alright, enough about Inkscape trying to drink, because, I mean, it's a program, so it can't. I'll stop. No, it'd be really funny now I think about it, if I draw another creature like pulling this one's hand, or I should say foreleg or whatever, while it's sleeping. That would be so funny. Oh wow, 20 years! You know, it's kind of funny now I think about it, that I probably have been using Inkscape for close to 20 years myself. But I'm not going to stop and calculate that on stream right now, because I will start to feel very, very old. Suffice to say that I was a pretty young person when I first started using Inkscape, although I had no clue what I was doing. And let's be thankful that my old laptop, which is still there, is not really accessible at this point. So I can't get any of my old work off of it. And even older than that, I have old hard drives and stuff that probably have some of my original work on them, but I'm afraid to look. Let's just say, just like Inkscape, I have grown by leaps and bounds. And I don't blur everything anymore. Let me do something rough here. I'm gonna put a rough drawing of some kind of creature pulling on this one. I have to say, it's quite a milestone that Inkscape made it this far, because there are many other tools of this kind that have come and gone. Some, unfortunately, we know have lost developers due to, you know, natural or unnatural causes, but also some just have fallen by the wayside because maybe no one was contributing or anything like that. So Really cool to have an app like Inkscape survive this long and completely open source from inception till now. That is amazing. Opens doors to people like myself who cannot afford to be paying a subscription for tools that, quite frankly, shouldn't cost that much, but they do. And even if I could afford it, I mean, I would use them if I have to, but I'm comfortable with what works as well, so, you know. I'm grateful too to see that there are other competitors coming on the scene that are being more reasonable, because design work is not easy, and it's hard enough having to find people to do design work for and then have to pay an arm and a leg, plus a kidney, and a toenail, and an eye, and your earlobe for a suite of apps that, quite frankly, you could have just paid a finger for. This guy has quite a long tail. I'm gonna try to illustrate, or indicate I should say, that he's pulling really hard. Like, his feet are really digging in, trying to get this other guy's toe. Oh, wait a sec. Is my playlist done? Oh, no, it isn't. It's just YouTube being special. I'm actually gonna have him using all four legs to try to get grip so he can pull this other one's arm off. Now that I'm drawing this, it reminded me, I was telling my nieces and nephews the other day about T-Rex arms, and they were kind of shocked. Now imagine you have this giant creature with really short arms and you're thinking, oh, they're probably just degenerate and useless. Well, calculations were done based on the size of the muscles from muscle attachments, etc., and I won't go into all those details, but it turns out that as short as their arms were, they could be pretty powerful. So T-Rex, if it had long enough arms, could actually do push-ups, but its arms were too short for that, so that's the only reason it couldn't. But it could also lift you off the ground if its arms were long enough, with just its arms alone. So it remains quite a mystery why they even had them so short, and why they only had 2 fingers, because they were pretty strong. I do have a theory though, and this is just me being silly, but I have a theory. Maybe what happened is the male T-Rexes were just busy trying to show off their arms to the girls, and that's all they did. And eventually they stopped being useful and they degenerated into just big, buff muscles. And then they turn around and realize, oh wait, we could have used these, but it was too late. So next time when your friends ask you, do you even lift, bro? Actually lift so that you can answer honestly. Alright, he's down on one knee trying to get as much leverage as he can. Oh, not this spammer again. You know what? I'm not even gonna bother with this spammer. Alright, let's see how this is looking. I'm gonna need to make those lines a lot thicker at some point. I have two options so that I can either turn on stroke or I can go back over them again. For now, I'm just gonna turn on stroke. Okay, maybe not that much. That is ridiculous. There we go. The other option though would probably have been better in some ways, but for now I just want to actually see what things look like from far. I think this is good. You know what would be cool? To have like a crocodile or something lurking right here, about to eat the both of them. So I'm gonna put another layer here. What did I just do? Oh, I see. You know, the world would be a lot more of a scary place if the real OG crocodiles were still around. I'm talking like Sarcosuchus and Dinosuchus and that kind of stuff. Stuff the size of a school bus. 40 feet long. Quite a number of times. A head as long as I'm tall. Yeah. We are so fortunate. Alright, I'm gonna erase this and do it again. I was like, why does this keep opening? Oh, we're almost at the hour mark, so I'm probably gonna pause this at some point in the next few minutes and hop over to CSS. For some reason, I really love crocodiles and alligators and stuff like that. I guess because they look like they're kind of making fun of everything in life, but at the same time, they're up to no good. And that just is really funny to me. So, I mean, they're not really up to no good. They're not bad animals, obviously, but it's just it always looks like they're kind of like the Joker from DC Comics. Like they're always lurking and getting up to something. So I kind of like them for that reason. Which is bad, I know, but hey, it's funny. And I like fun. What's not funny though is sometimes I watch like documentaries and stuff and people are trying to be all impressive and going, well, there are crocodiles in the water, but I'm gonna go and jump headfirst into the water. Like, buddy, hello. You do realize that they can eat you, right? Just saying. Anyway, I don't want that light to look like that. Give it a little bit of an highlight right here. Another random cool fact that I just remembered, crocodilians are not technically warm-blooded, but they do have the ability, if I remember correctly, to shift their blood around in such a way that they can maintain higher levels of activity, at least when submerged, than most other reptiles can. But they still do suffer from the one problem most reptiles have, which is that if they are like really active, like say if you catch them and they tire themselves out, it takes them a while to get back to their base level energy, so that's one of the reasons why they're kind of so lazy. They're kind of like some kinds of sharks in a way, in that they have some tricks that they trade for staying underwater. Well, sharks obviously live in the water, but I mean they have some tricks they trade that work in a similar way biologically to allow them to stay underwater longer, and also have those bursts of energy that they need to catch their prey. Pretty cool stuff. Now with this guy, you can't quite tell which direction he's facing, and I like that. Right, now what oops, I always end up doing that by accident, rotating the canvas when I don't mean to. What I'm going to do here is take a quick pause. I will be back in just a minute. Or it may be my CPU, or it may be my ISP. I hope it's not the ISP, because recently I think they've been doing upgrades, but whenever that happens, we start getting issues. So I hope it's not my ISP. Oops, I meant to press page. Alright. Alright, I'm going to save this. I said I was going to save this earlier and I forgot. I'll have to remember to, Martin, to try 720 streams in the future. But I usually use OBS for YouTube as well, so I kind of forget to change my settings every stream. So I'll have to remember to go back and do that. Where am I saving this? Oh yeah. Alright, I will be right back. Okay, I am almost ready to go again. We'll be switching over to CSS now, as I said. And also, I'm going to be showing you something that is coming up very soon. I'm going to be releasing. I just need to upload something here in the background, and then you will get to see it. So long as my computer stops moving like molasses. Alright, tell you what, seeing as my computer is moving at lightning speed, in a photograph, what I will do is try to use